1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. 6-1, the Rangers lead in the top of the ninth. Feliz the high set. Here comes the pitch. Breaking ball, strike 3 call. The Rangers are going to the World Series.
In the air, shallow right. The Texas Rangers win the pennant. Second consecutive year.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Welcome to Rangers Nation Podcast, talking all things Texas Rangers. Rangers Nation Podcast is a part of Dallas Sports Nation, providing coverage of all your DFW sports teams. Now, here's your host, Texas Rangers blogger, the Recliner Nerd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Rangers Nation's podcast. Today's episode is the KBO. KBO, yeah, we've got someone joining us today. Jeeho Yoo is joining us all the way from, are you in Seoul, Korea?
That's right. I'm in Seoul, Korea.
In Seoul, Korea, who is joining us. Jeeho, he just taught me how to say his name. For those of you that started following him, I put it out there earlier today. He was going to join us today. It's spelled Y-E-E-H-O, and he told me it is J, right?
J. Yep. Jeeho, and my family name is Y-O-O.
Is Y-O. So it's Jeeho Yoo from all the way from Korea, but you didn't grow up in Korea, did you?
No, actually, I spent some time in Toronto. I was born and raised, I think, for the first 13, 14 years of my life in Korea, and then went to high school and we call it university up there, university in Toronto. And then spent 7 years up there, and then came back to do my mandatory military service and then started working here. So that's the sort of life summary.
So I guess while in Toronto, is that where you learned to speak English, or did you learn it while you were growing up in Korea?
Well, I guess I learned a little bit of English growing up, but learning how to speak it, really use it, was all in Toronto. So I might have an odd A at the end of some sentences here and there. So just bear with me.
Okay, so you grew up. So one of my questions was going to be, I noticed you're a big Toronto fan. You're a big fan of the Raptors and the Maple Leafs and all of that. So in my head, I thought, well, he must have grown up in Toronto. So I was going to ask, obviously your family's from Korea. Did you get back as a kid in Korea? You spent a lot of time in Korea, going back and forth. So your family stayed in Korea, or did your parents come over with you to go to high school?
Oh, it's just my dad. He was assigned to work. He was a banker. He's not retired, but he was working in a bank, and he was assigned to work in his Toronto branch of his bank. So he was sent there, and he took me with him, and he was there for about 3.5 years. And I was my first freshman in university, so I stayed put to finish my university and came back. So I was there for 7 years. My dad for 3.5 years, but my mom and I have a sister. And they stayed back in Korea to, she finished her education in Korea.
Now, do your parents and your sister speak English too? My
dad, a little bit. He had to actually speak it to be able to work overseas.
Right.
So he had to learn, and he spoke a little bit. But, my mom and my sister, not so much.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So you're a huge sports fan. Did you play sports in high school or when you were in Toronto, or did you play, you didn't play at college, or did you?
No, I played in Korea, so Little League. Played in my elementary school. I was one of the founding members, and I kind of joke around with my fellow baseball writers in Korea that one of my claims to fame is I once hit a double off of a future KBO Rookie of the Year when we were playing together. We were playing against each other way back when, like you're talking about late 80s and early 90s. So. But I wasn't very good otherwise, which is why I quit after about 3 years, and then I didn't really pursue any, serious baseball playing career.
Okay, so when high school, I'm understanding you went in Toronto. You went to high school, but so you were just what did you do? You didn't play sports. You just loved sports.
I played. I love sports. I played a whole bunch of sports. Baseball, obviously. My high school had a big baseball field, nice little diamond. Like it turned out they had a baseball team, and then the team got disbanded the year I arrived at the high school. So, but there are some former players on the school still. So I play with the guys, play a lot of basketball. I get that I'm kind of tall for an Asian guy. So I'm about 6'2.5", 6'3".
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I play with a whole bunch of guys in the basketball team. We had a pretty good basketball team in my high school back there. So played a little bit of hockey. obviously, because you live in Toronto, you have to learn how to play hockey. So play a little bit of a shinny, as we call it, kind of a backdoor outdoor hockey. Play a lot of tennis also. So anything with the ball, I enjoy playing.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm a lot older than you are, saying that you were in elementary school in the 80s and all of that. I was coming out of high school and doing that. So I see where your love of sport. Are your folks and everybody, are they into sports too, or just you? You're just a sports nerd?
It's my mom actually who got me into sports. It's kind of an unusual story. How there's always the father-son dynamics when kids get into sports and all that. It was my mom who has been really interested in sports. She got me into baseball. She got me into basketball when I was growing up in Korea. And one of my favorite childhood memories is to go to baseball games with my mom. And then also during wintertime, basketball was huge back then when I was growing up. Just sitting around, just kind of laying low, stay warm in our house and watching basketball with my mom on TV. So she got me into sports quite a bit when I was growing up.
So so when you were growing up, obviously you're big. Were you a fan of American baseball, or were you a big fan of the KBO? And
I was a big fan of KBO. I was a big fan of NBA basketball. We had, of all the North American sports, I think the access to NBA was the easiest for Korean kids growing up in my age, my generation. We played some NBA video games, like those Lakers versus Celtics, on computer. So we got to know the names, and I think it was around my 7th or 8th grade. Then one of the TV stations in Korea started televising on tape some NBA games, one NBA game per week. So they really kind of, set NBA on fire, so to speak. There was a huge basketball boom in Korea at the time. So, we got to watch some of the NBA playoffs live on Korean TV back then, early 90s. And then we had better access to NBA than other North American sports. I was aware of MLB. I knew some of the teams, but I was a bigger NBA fan growing up than MLB.
Okay, well that's understandable the way you're talking. And so, do they show MLB games now in America, in Korea, or is it?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. One of the it's huge. I was talking to you off air about Shinsu Chiu with the Rangers, and how the Rangers have a big fan base in Korea. Like, their games are on every day, and also when Hyunjin Ryu, one of the Korean players in the majors, he's now pitching for the Blue Jays.
Yep.
When he was with the Dodgers, the Dodgers have a long history of having Korean players on their roster, dating back to Chanho Park, one-time Ranger.
Yeah, played for the Rangers.
He's the first Korean guy to make it to the majors. So the Dodgers are probably the most popular MLB big league team in Korea. So their games are on pretty much every day. So yeah, you tune in Korean cable. You can have it streamed live for free on Korean websites. You get, I think, at least 2 games every day, pretty much. One in the East Coast, one on the West Coast.
So, sorry about that. I've got a kid texting. I got to get him off there. So let me ask you this: how did you get into covering KBO? Now, did you study journalism in college, or did you?
No,
I think that's what you wanted to do.
Oh yeah, I kind of figured I wanted to be a writer. This is before I even left for Canada. I wanted to be a sports writer in Korea, and then I relocated to Toronto, started learning English, and one of the things I did a lot in the early days was I read a lot of newspapers, a lot of online, sports articles, just because, one, I was a fan, and 2, I wanted to learn how some of the professional writers wrote. And I worked for a different college newspapers. I freelanced a little bit. So yeah, I kind of figured what I wanted to do pretty early, and then I tell people I'm the lucky guy who gets paid to watch sports and write about them. So as far as KBO, I guess baseball is the #1 sport in Korea right now. So it has been for a while. So if you cover Korean sports in any language in this country, you have to pretty much cover baseball. That should be your #1 priority.
So now, so I see you're a contributor to ESPN for the KBO, right? You'd contribute to ESPN. Yeah, and then
I was on their KBO telecast a few times this past season.
Yeah, I watched some of those. Maybe I heard you. I didn't realize it, but when the season didn't start here, and you're just jiving for baseball so bad, we started watching. KBO was the first one to get started. So we were watching a lot of the games even before I'd heard of, and we're going to get into him in a minute, the Ha-Seong Kim. I want to talk about him because you have covered him, you know him going in, and he is somebody that I have wanted him since I found out he was coming over. He fits for the Rangers. Obviously, I think there's 16 teams in on him, but watching the Korean, I loved it. I watched they didn't have fans at first, but y'all ended up the end of the year, you had fans, didn't you?
Right. There was a very small brief window. I think it was from late July to mid-August when we had some fans, and then the COVID-19 cases, spiked back up. So the stadiums had to close down again. And then for the postseason, we had a few fans. Although I think toward the end, the final 3 games of the Korean series, we had fewer and fewer fans because of the COVID-19 surge. But yeah, at the end, we had at least some fans in the stands to finish up the season.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, are you a beat writer? I know you're with Yonhap News. Is that something too? So is that who your main employer is?
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about them. Are they a
News.
newspaper? What are they?
Well, it's kind of Associated Press of Korea. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's the newswire. It's the biggest newswire in Korea.
Okay.
We publish in 6 different languages, English being one of them. But the sports coverage is very limited. Actually, I'm the only person writing sports in English in my company. So, and KBO being my main beat. I guess you were going to ask me about my beat. I don't have a beat per se with the team. I just cover the whole league. So I don't know. I guess I'm the national guy, I guess, right? So I, covered the big guy, all the big events, obviously every postseason game. And this past year, I wasn't able to travel a lot for obvious reasons. So I kind of, they just stayed in Seoul. We've got 3 teams based in this city, and 2 stadiums. So basically, I stayed in the city to cover games during the regular season.
Now, I wonder if it was like us. I'm credentialed media for the Rangers. This year was different because everything was Zoom. We did Zoom interviews after every game. Is that what y'all did also?
No, we were able to do it in person, but we also had some restrictions. So in the KBO, we don't have access to the clubhouse, but we have access to dugouts before and after games. I guess we used to.
Okay.
To speak to players and managers. It was kind of free for all in the dugout. We kind of hung around, grab players as they go by between batting practices or fielding drills, and then have some small scrums and talk to players. This year, it was only 1 designated player per team. Home team, 1 from the home team, 1 from the visiting team, and not all the time either.
Yes.
So they brought in 1 player to the press conference room, and obviously everyone had to wear the mask, had to maintain their distance. So no free access to players. So it was like the designated hours for each manager and either 1 or 2 players per game, and 1 player from the winning team after games. So the access was pretty much limited this year. Wasn't as fun working wise because sometimes you want to talk to the losing team, right? You want to talk to the guy who maybe served up the game-winning hit in the 9th inning or something like that. But we didn't have that access this year.
Yeah, so it was different for us too doing that because normally in America, covering the Rangers is the only one I cover, but we did have access to the clubhouse, the dugout before, and then afterwards we got access to the clubhouse again to talk to the players after the game and do that. This year it was all Zoom, so we weren't allowed to leave the press box to even walk around the stadium if we were at a game. A lot of the people that covered the beat here for the Rangers actually some of them work from home. Just because everything they could do, we could do by Zoom and all of that. So how many games on a normal season, regular season? Let me ask you this: have you ever covered American games? Have you come over here and covered any of them?
I was in spring training this past year. This year. It was my first U.S. spring training. I was in Florida to cover the Cardinals and the Blue Jays. Because they acquired Korean players,
right?
But I haven't covered major league games in person. I've been to a whole bunch of games at the Rogers Center, or back then it was Skydome.
Yeah,
but I haven't. Yeah, I was kind of looking forward to going back to Rogers Center to cover it with Rio possibly starting the opening day in Rogers Center.
Right.
I believe it might have been against the Red Sox or the Yankees, but obviously it didn't happen. I was pretty bummed up about that. But yeah, I don't know when I'll be next able to make the trip to the U.S. to cover U.S. baseball.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe if my dreams come true, maybe Kim ends up here, and then you'll come cover a game.
Yeah,
I'll take you around Dallas somewhere. We'll go get a cold.
I've never been to Texas. I've I've been to a whole bunch of places in the U.S., but never Texas. So yeah.
Well, you do that, and I'll get you there. Okay. So I want to talk about Ha-Seong Kim. You've covered him. Have you met him? I guess obviously you've met him. Talked to him.
Yeah.
So do you have any inside information yet? You know that it's supposed to be coming up here quick because, I heard he was posted on the 1st and it was due by January 1st, but I read something somewhere that said that it wasn't technically started till about the 10th, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Is it the deadline the 1st, New Year's Day?
Yeah, 5 p.m. Eastern, New Year's Day. That's the deadline. So every player who gets posted, whether it's from Korea or Japan, they have 30-day period.
Right.
And then Kim's 30-day kicked in on December 2nd.
Okay.
And then there was a bit of a hold up because the MLB commissioner's office asked Kim's team for additional medical information.
Right.
They're kind of being, doing their due diligence, asking for extra information and all that. Not that he has a lot of injury history. He's been pretty durable. But so they had to, kind of scramble in the last minute to take him to different hospitals and, have him take different imagings and all that. So it took a few more days after they initially asked MLB to post him. So it began on December 2nd, and then it will end on New Year's Day, 5 p.m. Eastern.
So tell me about him. So was he obviously the best Korean hitter in the league this last year? Was he all-around player? I mean, he's a good defensive player. Played third base this year, right? But he's looking at shortstop possibly in the U.S.
He's a shortstop. He's a natural shortstop. He only played a little bit of third base this year because his KBO team, the Kium Heroes, signed Addison Russell in the summer. Russell formerly with the Chicago Cubs. He was an all-star back in 2016 when they won the World Series. So he played shortstop, and Kim moved to third for a little bit. But Russell was kind of a disappointment at both with his glove and his bat. So later in the year, Kim moved back to shortstop. They played Russell at second base, so he didn't play much down the stretch. So, but he can handle a little bit of short and a little bit of third as well. He's a very athletic player, very toolsy, right? He hits for average, hits for power, can steal bases. This year he had 30 homers. That's his career high, and stole 23 bases. So his second career 2020 season. Last year he came a 1 homer shy of a 2020 season. This year I think he stole first 20 bases without getting caught. And also for the first time he walked more than he struck out in 2020. So he picked a good time to have such a productive season at the plate. He's a shade under 6 foot, so he's not a big guy, but he packs a lot of power in the body. He's worked on his improving his strength, his upper body strength in recent years, so he can hit for power. I guess the big question mark for any hitters coming over from Asia to MLB is whether they can handle velocity. Obviously, KBO pitchers don't throw as hard as MLB guys. Even American pitchers who come over to the KBO to pitch, they don't throw as hard. I think the hardest pitches you might see, hardest pitches, maybe 93, 94, maybe 95. But, MLB back end of the bullpen, you're going to see 99, right? So
sure,
that's always the big question mark with the hitters going over from Asia to MLB. In terms of Kim Ha-Seong, the person, he's a very quiet guy. He's very unassuming. It's not a great interview, by the way. He doesn't say a lot of interesting things, but he can make our job a little difficult. But he's a good kid.
That's good. Well, there was a couple, Chu was very talkative. He would sit there and talk a lot. Now he speaks great English. Does Kim speak English at all? Do you know?
I don't think so, but I'm sure he'll be taking lessons, right? Yeah. But I don't, obviously when I talk to him, we're talking Korean, so I don't know, but
sure.
Yeah.
When is the last time you've talked to him?
Oh, geez.
Not since he's been posted.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, not since he's been posted. Not, I guess during the postseason, maybe he was brought in for an interview for one of the press conferences, maybe. So that might have been it. Yeah. So
what's your gut? Now I know I'm a Texas fan. You don't have to say he's coming to Texas, but do you hear anything? Is there anything I'm not hearing that you are? There's 6 teams that I'm hearing that are really that have made offers to him. So have you heard anything over there?
Yeah, I mean the Blue Jays have been mentioned a few times, right? The fact that he and Ryu had dinner in Seoul earlier this month.
Right.
It kind of set Toronto on fire. I guess it was a kind of slow news day back then. I guess Kim kind of reached out, kind of try to pick Ryu's brains about maybe playing in Toronto or maybe just playing in MLB in general. So we don't know that, right? So I guess Toronto is probably not as good of a fit as the Rangers if you look at the infield situation. I guess Isaiah Flafel might be moving over from third base to shortstop. Elvis Andrews might be more of a utility guy going forward. So I guess the Rangers have a hole at third. Kim can play third, or well with the Blue Jays. I mean, Bobby Shett, he's a shortstop.
Yeah,
and I don't know if the Jays can tell him in his third year, going into his third year. I don't know if they can tell him, you know what, we got this guy, you can play as well. I don't know that they're gonna do that. I've heard Mets maybe, Mets might be interested. St. Louis Cardinals might be also interested.
So I did a deep dive today. They're the 6 teams that were mentioned. The 2 that really have a hole at shortstop, which now we've heard he really only wants to play shortstop. Is that true, or is he willing to play anywhere as long as he's starting?
No, I think he'll be willing to play anywhere. I don't think he's going to limit himself like that. So I mean, he has proven that he can play third, at least in the KBO.
So in Texas, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was moved over. They made the announcement he's moving over to short. They're going to give him. He was a Gold Glover at third base. Now let me be clear. Kim comes in. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, 25 years old, also. He could go right back to third, be a Gold Glove third baseman. I mean, look, that kid just wants to be on the field. So if that's the case, and Kim does that now, has Kim had ever played second base, or is that an option?
I don't remember I don't remember seeing him play second base. So I bet he could play there. There's one example of a Korean midfielder moving over to the States. It happened to be Kim's former teammate Jeong-ho Gang with the Pirates. He was a shortstop, and then Pirates made him a third baseman, and he played also a little bit of a second base in his first couple of years with the Pirates. So with Kim's athleticism, maybe the team, maybe whoever signs him might be inclined to maybe try him at second base.
So with what I said on my deep dive, when I looked at the 6 teams, the 2 teams that really had a maybe possible hole at shortstop were the Mets and maybe the Cardinals. Although DeJong didn't have a horrible year, and the Mets had Jimenez, I think that's how you say his name, who's very young and had a pretty good year last year. So I don't know, but that was if the deal was he really only wanted to play shortstop. Now Texas has 2 or 3 holes in the infield that they could fill. Second base, obviously one with Rougned Odor that they looking to replace there. Third base with Andrus being utility. I mean, there's a place for him. I'm getting flack from some of the other people that cover him. I want Kim. I've wanted him from the beginning. Let me ask you about the difference between the MLB and KBO. I've heard KBO somewhere between AA and AAA ball, somewhere in there compared to, but it's still the numbers that he put up in Korea the last 3 or 4 years. If that's even comparable to AA, AAA, that still means coming into the major leagues. Yeah, he'll have a dip off from what he did last year. He's probably not going to come out here and hit 300 with 30 home runs, but good Lord, his OPS was good. All of that. If it falls off a little to get an adjustment, that's still way better than most teams have at any of the infield positions.
Right, and you mentioned AA and AAA. That seems pretty accurate. I get that a lot. They say Japan is about quadruple A, and the KBO is about anywhere between AA and AAA. I talked about velocity earlier. I think there might be a big issue in terms of facing different heats, different levels of fastballs in MLB. But hey, if you hit 30 homers, you hit 30 homers, right? Regardless of the level of competition, and you play shortstop, hit 30 homers, steal 23 bases, and get on base 40% of the time. That's pretty good. So sometimes baseball might just be baseball anywhere. I think the difference maker might be his ability to make adjustments to life maybe off the field, because sometimes you can get to guys' heads a little bit. They get bothered by something off the field. Maybe they get homesick. You get a lot of guys that are coming over to the KBO who get homesick and they don't play as well as they maybe were expected to. So going the other way, I think that it could be an issue as well. But other than that, if you have the talent, there hasn't been a lot of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, is he the best position player that's come out of Korea so far?
That's debatable. I guess Jeong-ho Gang was pretty good.
Yeah.
He hit 40 homers the year before he left. And then we had also Byung-ho Park, who signed with the Minnesota Twins, also coming out of the Heroes organization. He had two 50-homer seasons in the KBO. Granted, the ball was juiced back then. I guess the pitching wasn't the same. But, if you hit 50 homers, you hit 50 homers. And he had two of them in the KBO coming to the posting and getting signed with the Twins. So, yeah, there's some good players back then, a few years back. And also this year, we've got an outfielder named Sungbum Na. He played for the NC Dinos, the KBO champions this year. He's an outfielder / DH. Had a pretty devastating knee injury last year, which kind of limited him to DH this year. But he's also a good hitter. So, but Kim Ha-Seong, yeah, he's definitely up there. And this year alone in the KBO, I think he was 5th or 4th in the MVP voting this year. So he's not counting, I guess, catchers. He's probably the best position player among the Koreans in the KBO.
And that's defensively too, you're saying, because he's apparently just athletic, good defender.
Yeah, he's a very good defender. He's not the best defensive shortstop. I would think he's maybe, out of 10 regulars, he's probably 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
But he can make up for that with his bat.
Yeah, that's that. Okay, so let me ask, who all got posted this year out of Korea? So you said the outfielder, you said Kim. Who else?
Yeah, those two.
Those are the only two that got posted, because the Rangers just went out and signed Ari Hara out of Japan, who they just signed. Right. So the ancients, the Rangers have a huge Pacific Rim scouting department out there. They cover all the KBO, the KBO,
NPB,
NPB, and in China. They cover all of them, but and Korea, they've never been afraid to go get. Now this would be the first time I think they've brought someone out of Korea on posting, on doing on the posting, if they were to sign him. But I've watched all kinds of videos of Kim. I'm a big fan. Now let me ask you this: going forward, who's the name that we don't know that's probably looking? Because is it like Japan, where they have to play so many years before they're able to be posted? Who's the next big name that's going to be? Is it a pitcher? Is it a position player that maybe next year, the year after, you see that's going to be a big name to watch?
Yeah. So in the KBO, you have to put in 7 full seasons.
Okay.
So obviously, if you're hurt, if you miss a whole bunch of time, then it doesn't count towards your service time. So you have to put in 7 full years. This year we've got Kim and Na. I mentioned the outfielder from the NC Dinos. Right. Down the road, there's a left-handed pitcher named Changmo Koo, also pitching for the NC Dinos. He's a lefty. He's about 22 years old. He doesn't have the service time yet, so he needs to wait a few more years. He was, I think, something like 9-0, ERA below 1.5 before before they shut him down with some forearm issues this year. But he was dynamic to start the season. He was probably the best pitcher in the KBO, and his team's games were on ESPN quite a bit. So they developed a huge following in the US.
I followed him.
Yeah, so Koo became sort of a cult hero over in the US because he's a lefty who throws a splitter. He throws relatively hard in the KBO. So he came back in time for the postseason, but he missed a whole chunk of the second half of the regular season. But if he gets in enough service time before he gets too old, he might be drawing some interest, I think. Obviously, lefty who throws 92, 93, can be a for any team. One other, I want to say infielder, he was a catcher, a pitcher in high school. He played everywhere in pro. KT Wiz, Peko Kong. He's a first baseman now. He's not much of a defender, but he's got a pretty aggressive, powerful swing from his relatively small stature. He hits for a lot of power. This year, he was one of maybe, I think, 4 or 5 players with 300 batting average, 400 on base, and 500 slugging. So
holy cow.
He's only 21, 22. So I think he's one guy to maybe keep an eye on going forward.
Okay, so now I've got to ask you about KBO in general. So there's 10 teams, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
10 teams in the KBO. I want to know about the whole system. Do they have minor leagues in the KBO?
Yeah, it's called the Futures League. So they're all affiliated with the teams. So each of the 10 teams has their own Futures League affiliation.
Is it just one team usually?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have their 25 staff, their major leagues, 25 players, and how many are on down? Do they keep below about 25?
It's got to be more. There's also sort of kind of the third tier teams, the training squad. They don't play official games, but they keep some of the younger prospects down there. So the minor league systems are a lot bigger than the KBO proper.
Okay, so and so now, do you go out to cover any of those also, and go cover minor league?
No,
You're
not
all
me.
major league.
Yeah.
So
I'm
let
a
me
big
ask you.
shot,
So does the KBO have a draft?
Oh yeah. We have actually 2 separate rounds of draft. We've got 1 round of territorial draft. They're gonna get rid of it in a few years. They're trying to get rid of it in a few years. So territorial draft, each team gets 1 pick from high schools or universities within their regions.
Okay.
So a lot of the top guys go in that draft.
Okay.
And then sort of the more American style, snake style draft that takes place a little later in the year. So we have 2 separate draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, God, it's you know what? I need to come over there. I would love to. I want to go watch baseball in Asia. I would love to come out and watch KBO.
You gotta come watch with the fans in it. Like
Yes,
the full house.
Yeah, I've heard it because CJ Nikowski is our one of our color on analyst, and I talked to CJ a lot. He played both in Korea and Japan, and he said it's unreal. It's unbelievable the difference. The fans are so into it. The noise, when it's like when we see soccer or football overseas, and the fans going crazy. The fans go crazy here in America, but not like that. I mean, that is some loud stuff you're listening to when you're watching it on TV. And now this year with no fans, that was not it. But I've seen the videos, especially the older videos of Kim from a couple of years ago. The fans are just going crazy in the stands. It's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's from the first pitch to the final out. You're gonna see fans actually staying put even when their team is getting blown out. Like, fans are gonna be there singing the songs and doing the dances when their team's down by like 8 runs in the 9th inning. So yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff over here.
Now on that, so for the KBO, there's 10 teams. You said 3 are there in Seoul. What's the farthest any team is? Do you travel by air? Do they travel by train? How do they get to?
No, they usually take buses, not even trains. I don't think. I think vast majority of the time they just take the buses. The farthest, from Seoul we've got a team called the Lotte Giants.
Yeah,
they're down south, kind of southeast. They're kind of like the Seattle Mariners of MLB in terms of traveling, because they cover the most distances. It's about on a good day, it's about maybe 5-hour drive.
Oh, that's not horrible.
Yeah, but that's probably the longest trip. Or maybe the Kia Tigers. They're in the city of Gwangju. They're kind of on the southwest coast. They're also kind of far south. On a good day, from Seoul to the Tigers' home, maybe 4.5 hours, 4 hours drive.
That's not horrible. So is that most of your travel? Are you driving to all the stadiums? You just take off and go?
No, I take trains. If I have to travel, I take the express trains, like bullet train in Korea. A lot more efficient, faster, because the traffic is horrible in Korea.
Yeah, and you can do some work while you're traveling too.
Yeah, well, I can watch baseball.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of the East Coast games, because I watch a lot of Blue Jays games. It's on like in the morning hours, right? Like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Yeah, when I'm traveling, on the train, I watch a lot of baseball, a lot of sports, hockey, basketball, baseball, whatever's on. So.
Okay, so before I get in, I wanted to ask you a couple of things about. First of all, I used to date a girl whose mother was Korean, so I became a fan of kimchi. And
okay.
Are you a big fan of kimchi?
We all are, I guess.
Yeah, but and I have to. My wife now loves it too. But I remember that her mother made it. She wouldn't eat it because of the smell, and I was like, you got to get past that. This is some tasty stuff. But kimchi, explain it. It's a cabbage that it's like, do they spoil it? I don't know what they do.
It's fermented.
Yes.
So you kind of, it's cabbage. You mix it with hot pepper paste and powder and all bunch of other ingredients, and you kind of I guess ferment it for a few days, and it's very complicated actually. And there's a whole bunch of there's 10 dozens of different types of kimchi that are available.
I've never found one I didn't like. That's for sure. Now let me ask you about American food. Now, is there American food that you love to have and when you come here? Or
yeah, I'm not a very picky eater, so I love everything. Whether it's Korean, American, or Canadian, or Mexican.
Yeah.
we can get some Tex-Mex in Korea now too. So
You can get Tex-Mex?
Oh yeah, I love Mexican food. A lot of the foreign players like Mexican food in Korea for some reason. I guess
Yeah.
it gives them a little bit of taste of home, at least close to it.
So unlike it is where a Korean player has to be posted, any free agent in America can just talk with a KBO team, because we see a few of them. Adrian Sampson came over and pitched. He was with the Rangers when I was in the clubhouse, so I got to know Adrian. He pitched last year in Korea. Didn't have a great year, but didn't have the greatest year in Texas either. So, but really sweet guy, really nice guy. But so he just free agency, right? He just can talk to anybody and sign and go, right? There's no posting or anything like that.
No. Well, same for the KBO. We've got one free agent pitcher in the KBO who's trying to go to overseas, trying to go to majors. Kia Tigers lefty Hyunjung Yang. He was posted a few years back. We didn't find out who won the bidding at the time. Rumor has it that it was the Rangers. They won the bidding, but he didn't like the amount of the bidding. He didn't take the offer, so it ended up being nothing. But now he's a free agent. So if you play 7 years, you're eligible to be posted. If you put in 9 years, you're a free agent in the KBO. So he's a free agent. I don't know if he's drawing a lot of interest. He's over 30 now. He had a kind of down year in 2020, so he's probably not drawing a lot of interest from other teams. But we'll see what happens with him. But coming from the AL, America to Korea, we're seeing better players now, I think, coming over to Korea compared to the past. We're seeing guys coming straight off 40-man roster or 25-man roster to Korea. You mentioned Adrian Sampson, his teammate Dan Straley. This guy was, I think he won like 15 games one year with the Reds, right?
Yeah.
He came over in Korea. He dominated last year. Aaron Brooks, he came over here, dominated in KBO first year. Daniel Mangdon, his former Oakland teammate, he just signed on Christmas Day with the same KBO team, the Kia Tigers. So you get a lot of guys who are just fresh off MLB straight to the KBO, trying to reinvent themselves a little bit maybe and hoping to go back to the majors, following the footsteps of guys like Eric Thames or Josh Lindblom, a couple of former KBO MVPs who went back to the MLB and had a kind of mixed results, but they kind of settled in, I think, with MLB clubs.
Well, they probably made a lot more money than staying in the minor leagues by coming over and playing. And because I've seen the salaries and it's like, these guys, no wonder he signed. In fact, Sampson wasn't off the 40-man roster when he signed. Not yet. I mean, now he might have gotten designated here before that, but he took off and signed pretty immediately, went over there. So this is fascinating to me. I'm a baseball nut and a baseball nerd. I just love it all together. Talking to you when I found you on there. In fact, I'm Googling every day trying to find out new news, and somehow found you, and I was like, this guy right here, what Jeeho, I've picked you up today, followed you, reached out to you, reached right back. Yeah. Now I'm going to be watching everything you post and see what's going on and start reading your stuff. We're going to get this podcast out there too and get everyone to listen to it. Look, we're going to wind this thing down. We've gone almost 40 minutes. We've talked all about the KBO. If you had to make a prediction, do you have one where you think Kim ends up?
Oh boy. Look, I think the Rangers are a great fit. And I've, some of my sources have mentioned the Mets.
Yep. I've heard that too.
Yeah. Blue Jays, I don't know. Honestly, I'm such a big fan of the team.
You'd love to see the Blue Jays get him, and boy, that team's so young and good. If he got on that team, they would
I don't know if there's a fit, to be honest. I don't know if getting a middle infielder is their pressing need at the moment, because I know the Jays are going after George Springer.
Yes.
The center fielder. Maybe another starting pitcher. Could be Trevor Bauer, could be somebody else, but I don't know if getting an infielder is the need at this offseason. So the Blue Jays, I'm not so sure, but I think the Rangers, the Mets, you mentioned the Cardinals, they already also have a Korean player in the roster, in the rotation. So could be a nice fit.
That helps. Yeah, that would help. That's somebody that could talk to him, right away, that have a teammate to talk there. And look, I want him really bad, but there are some options out there. I think they're saying they think it's going to be 5 years, somewhere around 50, 60 million. Some of the stuff I've heard, that's not a lot of money to me for a guy, even if he's not what his KBO numbers are. It's still a great fit. in my opinion. That's my opinion. No one listens to me. That's why I'm, John Daniels in the front office doesn't listen to me, or I wish they would. Listen, this is Jeeho Yoo. I said that
There
right?
you go.
Jeeho Yoo from he's from Yonhap News in Korea, coming on here to talk KBO. Jeeho, I can't thank you enough for coming on. We're going to do this again after he signs. Maybe we'll come on. We'll talk about it. What did you think he'll do here? Maybe this, especially if he's with the Rangers at all, we'll come on and get you to do it a couple times. If you come to town, for sure, we'll get together. I appreciate you coming on, Jeeho.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's Jeeho Yoo from Korea, all the way from Korea. It's about 1 o'clock there. We're going to sign this thing off. And like I say at the end of every one of these episodes and anything I write, nerd out.